I'm doing the civil rights movement. Let me show you what you lost. The number of people coming into the country, just black folk during that time, were struggling for voters' rights. They were being shot, lynched, whipped, and beaten and bombed all through the South just for the right to go to the polls and vote. You just lost your voting power in this country. The immigrants wiped out your voting power. Your whole civil rights movement was a waste of time now. And those deaths were useless, futile. When in 1970, we outnumbered Hispanics, as an example, 2-1. They have now caught you and passed you. I predicted that in my first book, Black Labor, White Wealth. They'll catch you in the year 2000. They caught you exactly in the year 2000, right on the money. They now got 42 million in the country. You got 36 million. They can now outvote you on anything they want and block you on anything you want in the country. Now we got 14 to 20 million immigrants floating around this country, undocumented illegals, that the Congress is planning on giving amnesty to because white corporations want the cheap labor. Black folk are an obsolete labor class. They want some new labor. And so what they're going to do now is give them amnesty to 14 to 20 million. You add that 14 to 20 million to the 42 million you already got. That takes them up to almost 60 million Hispanics then in the country. Now, based on the 1986 immigration law, they then got a right to bring in their spouses, their children, and their parents. And we estimate that that'll bring in another 35 million Hispanics. They will then have 90 million to your 36. They will outnumber you 3-1 within 10 years. If you couldn't outvote whites, you haven't got a snowball's chance of outvoting Hispanics alone. Your vote was neutralized a long time ago. When I was running political campaigns for presidents back in '84 and for Carter in '76, and I ran in Atlanta, Georgia in '88, and again for Clinton's deputy political strategy in '92, I knew then that the black vote was gone and dead. See, whites alone outnumber you 8-1. That means 8 will go over 1 at least 8 times with nothing left over. Your vote is only important in the powernomics principle when you vote as a majority. You must be the majority population. You cannot integrate and get economic power. You cannot integrate and get voting power. You must always try to figure out how to come together and aggregate to get your power. If you don't come together and become the majority population, your vote means nothing. If I throw a rabbit into a pen with 8 hungry bulldogs, the rabbit can vote all he wants about what they're going to have for dinner. And now, so that's why I tell the black folk, we now have to learn how to use powernomics principles. Now, how does that relate to your marketing? Here's the problem. You're now competing with these other groups that are coming to the country. They're doing what you're not doing. They're coming in here to build communities. We do not have not one single black community in America. We do not have one defined black market in America. If you don't have a defined black market in America, it makes it very difficult for you to compete against those groups. See, those groups, and what not only do you find across America, when they come into this country, they'll build a Japantown, a Chinatown, a little Korea, a little Saigon, a little Cambodia. You go across America and find little Havanas, little Hialeahs, little Italy. You find Greek town, Pole towns, Chinatowns, but you never find a black town. And so if you're working for a white corporation, how are you going to serve the white corporation? What are you going to do? Go out? You're going to go out and try to find black folk and sell them products that weren't even produced by you, that are produced by other people. So what you got to do then is try to figure out how to, most of you got to figure out how to get out of some of those jobs and quit being job seekers and be job producers, point one. You got to learn how to produce jobs. You produce those jobs by going out and at this point in time to save yourselves and survive, you got to go out and start rebuilding communities. You cannot get power and wealth unless you have communities. Everybody in America have communities except us. We do not have one single solitary black community in America. All we got are black neighborhoods. A black neighborhood is like a bucket with a hole in it. It won't hold anything. You can pour water in all you want to. A community, to be a community, you must have 3 elements in it to have a community. You must have a wholly independent economic structure with people in there who are producing goods, services, and jobs and business opportunities for their own people. 2, you must have a code of conduct that teaches you how to support and buy from those people who you live with and look like you. And 3, you must have some governance or some organization that will speak for you in politics. We don't have any of that. Every organization we got speaks for everybody. You go out and look at the book, you'll find Asian organizations, Jewish organizations, Korean organizations, Chinese organizations, but you won't find any black organizations. You'll find the Urban League. What's that? We don't know who that is. And then when you get the black organization, they won't fight for black rights. See, if I go out in the marketplace and women will come in, women will fight for women's rights. Gays fight for gay rights. Hispanic fight for Hispanic rights. Asian fight for Asian rights. Veterans fight for veteran rights. Senior citizens fight for senior citizen rights. You get the black folk, who they fight for? They fight for civil rights. And I ask, who is civil? Where does he live? And see, if even I want to send him somebody, I wouldn't even know where to send it. Because we don't fight for anything for our own people. But once you build these communities, you got to go inside there, and that's your market. Your market must be your communities. And if you start building these communities, then it makes it very easy for you all to promote your products if you got an identifiable community someplace to go into. And that's why the others are beating you. See, because they not only do they build their communities, but they put up ethnic barriers to make sure you cannot penetrate their communities, that you cannot market into their communities. They build their communities and they close them against you. So a black person working for a white corporation trying to market a product, they're not going to let you in their communities. Right now, the Chinese have a culture code which says this. First of all, that we would never, ever hire a black person in one of our business under any circumstance. We'll never hire you, and two, we'll never buy products from you. And they'll tell you that straight up. We will not buy from you, and so in our organizations, what we do, we got a Taiwanese, we send into the Chinese stores. Because he tells you straight up, no, our people, the Chinese will pretend they can't speak English when you go in to deal with them. And when you go into Chinatown, they mark their communities. And they put up in these barriers, make them competitive. All of them live together, except us. We're scattered. If you're scattered, you have no market. Nobody's going to drive all over town trying to find where your store is. So right now, Detroit, when I get into the good news now, in Detroit, Michigan, we're trying to rebuild our first big national community in America. In the city of Detroit, in Detroit, we have an area, a project area. My project area is over 100 acres. I got another 141 acres outside the city. We're going to build, I'm putting in 21 to 26 factories in there. I'm putting in about 15 distributorships. And I'm putting in about almost 50 to 52 businesses in there where black folk can now walk to work and walk and shop. And now when you all come, and now you marketers can come because you got your own community to come to sell your products. So when your corporations say, well, I don't know where your consumers are, where the black consumers are, where they are, you say, yes, I know where they are. We got one area in Detroit. We're going to build them in other cities. Just like you got an Asian town or Chinatown. And see, when you build these communities, you put up barriers too. Like in Chicago, where is Deborah? Like in Chicago, see my good friend Dorothy Tillman. See, Dorothy Tillman's been using those Powernomics principles down on 47th and South Martin Luther King Boulevard. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so what I told Dorothy, I said, you go in there and you find me a black area in Chicago and start building black businesses in there. And tell the rest of them, if it's not your community, so long, adios, goodbye. And bring in black businesses and put them in there. And she's been doing that. Am I right, Deborah? Okay. And you do that. And then I told her, she said, what else could I do? I said, once you build these communities so that your marketers and developers can get in, you mark and close your community just like the others do. When I go into Chinatown, as soon as I come around the corner, I'll see a big pagoda. And I'll see all kind of flags, and I'll hear ching dong, ding dong. I know they mark that community, that's theirs. And they're going to use their language and go look at the street signs. They're going to change those street signs so it reflects their culture, so it's closed, so you can't speak the language, you can't get in and get out. You got to learn, so what Dorothy Tillman does, and you go down there, Deborah, see, you look up on those telephone posts. Am I right? Thank you. See, and you see those big silhouettes, gold silhouettes of a silhouette of a black man with either a saxophone or a trumpet. Am I right, baby? And that you do the same. You build your communities and close them so that you got a market to promote your products in. And not only and now you got a closed community. And when you put up those barriers, that gives you a competitive advantage, just like the Asians got a competitive advantage in Chinatown. And the Hispanics got a competitive advantage, like in Miami. So you go into Miami, when the Cubans came into Miami, when I'm over education down there, the Cubans went in and took over all the distributorships, all in South Florida, so they control the industries down there. And then they use their culture and their language as a barrier so no one else can get in. When I go down and